every day is different. Every video is different. But my passion will always be the same. This is Kai for Warshawn, aka Stormboy13, and the storm has arrived. Wow! Hi guys, it's Stormboy13. This is a third year running. That's right. This video, you can tell on the title, I will be doing the winter outlook for the UK 2019/2020. So, what's the outcome going to be for this winter? First thing I'll tell you, before I get to those 3-month outlook with December, January, February, there has been a lot of media, predictions that are going to be a sharp increase with the Beast from the East, particularly with a significant spike media interest surrounding the potential for, as we know, Beast from the East winter. So firstly, forecasting seasons ahead, is never an exact science, and even the best of the trade and most professional forecasters often make errors. So to make sure a bold prediction indicates that a source of information is probably not legitimate. So basically, winter forecasting uses a variety of drivers, things in the atmosphere that thought have an impact on the weather in the UK. Things like the El Nino, Pacific Sea surface temperatures, the solar activity, the number of sunspots on the sun looks at, plus many more. Often the media will isolate one of these factors and use it in their predictions for a very cold, snowy winter, which of course cannot be ruled out, but making such a bold prediction does not make sense. So, first of all, before I officially go through the predictions of each month, let's just remind you of what the typical December, January and February normally prevail. So we have to go way back into the past. So from the winter of 1856 to 1857 to last year's winter, so putting them all together, December, the majority of those December months tend to have unsettled conditions with low pressure normally, particularly across much of North and West Europe. From those Decembers from 1856, 1857 to 2018/2019, most of the time December normally tends to be a wet and windy month, but also quite a mild month. So I think December is probably the main month of those three that has the lowest chance of snowfalls. January's, around those years, normally have an increased chance of a Scandinavian high, and January possibly has the best chance of being a colder, wintry type month. So January is the most likely, December is the least likely. February's combined collapses the Scandinavia high to Central and Eastern Europe, and with low pressure to the West of the UK, it's either like a very mixed month, a sunny but pretty cold month, or mild wet but a warm month. So normally December's wet and mild, January's cold and dry-ish, and then February very mixed. Okay, so we are officially beginning with the outlook. So, as we know, December always starts the meteorological winter. What will December 2019 be like? Now, the website I am on, look, every website will reveal different data, so the website I'm on this year is MetCheck. Now, the details on there aren't exactly completely accurate, but what I try and tend to do is I put, my slight own predictions and interpretation on what I would believe the outlook could potentially bring. So hopefully the data will only be slightly off and not completely off, because they're either completely right or completely wrong. But what I will be predicting for December 2019 is that it's likely to be a slightly colder than average month, especially throughout the second half. So there is a bit of an increased chance of a white Christmas this year, because the last few Christmases generally have been relatively mild. but generally no snow around, very little snow. Yes, there will be a fairly bright month though. Normally when it tends to be colder than average month in the winter, we tend to get a bit more sunshine, and that's what the outlook will be. However though, the rainfall totals will generally be around average, so there will be several days where we're going to see some wet and windy weather around, and it could be quite a windy month as well. 1 or 2 storms I wouldn't rule out as well. So December starts on a Sunday, doesn't technically matter I guess, but so for December, we've got like a straight westerly type, so that generally brings in some very changeable weather. So to begin December, there will be a few dry and settled days, but because we have a westerly around that time, particularly the high pressures and low pressures will be scattering all over, and that normally tends to move the weather systems very quickly. So for the beginning of December, to start off with, it will be very changeable. There's certainly no snow, temperatures around maybe just a shade above average, but it's a very mixed start to the month, quite windy at times. There's also, you know, some strong contrast with the temperatures. It normally happens in early winter with cold air in the north and then milder moist air further south, and they could be quite squeezed together, so that's why the winds will be particularly strong. With different air masses colliding together, it normally ups up the winds. So that will be particularly that theme to begin December. But I think by the second week, to be honest, the unsettled theme may continue, but there's a slight. The jet stream will probably predict to be taking a bit of a dip, and we'll mostly get the colder air with us, but we'll still get some meandering weather fronts and further weather fronts sweeping across the region. And there's also a little bit of snow around, so I think the second week, still windy and wet at times. There will be some sunshine, a few bright days, but it will be feeling much noticeably colder, particularly towards the second week of December. So the snow risk will be about maybe 20 to 30%. It's not going to be desperately cold, temperatures literally just a couple of degrees below the average, so I think snow showers will be more likely, or just a brief covering of snow. It's not really likely to be producing a huge amount of covering. But I think especially by the second half of December, the winds will completely change direction. We could see a bit of a northwesterly to even a northerly flow. Now it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be bringing in unsettled weather all the time, because obviously it can't snow all the time and it can't be staying weather all the time. The weather always moves around. But I think with when we get like a northerly wind, it does vary. The weather systems do vary when we get northerly winds, but the majority of the time when they do occur, normally we have lower pressure to the north, which obviously brings in the brunt of the colder winds. So I think northern England, well, not surprisingly, are most at risk of seeing some heavy snow, while southern England, chances are low, but even that, a wide south wouldn't be ruled out. But I think, yeah, because of a northerly direction, the high pressure will be higher further south, so probably a bit more drier. But I think particularly the northern 2/3 of England are likely to see some potentially disruptive weather. So but there's also going to be some sunshine coming through. Occasionally we get a bit of a northeasterly, but there's high pressure towards the south and southeast that might cut off that wintry low, and we'll see let's say Arctic sunshine. Now throughout the northerly wind for the second half of December, like I said, the low pressures and the high pressures may vary a little bit from day to day, but there are predictions. There will be a couple of days we can get some heavy snow about, and maybe a few days there'll be some snow showers depending on the wind direction. And estimation wise, 5 to 10 centimetres won't be ruled out. This will vary by region. Northern areas probably 15 to 20 centimetres, particularly around Scotland, maybe some parts of northern England. Mostly, this is where I am, I'm living in central England, so for southern England probably a little bit less than that, but 5, maybe not far off 10 centimetres, but it's a slightly lower risk. For central England, like I said, easily 5, possibly 10, and in northern England it's double figures. That's what the prediction will be, and actually that cold snap could last for a fair while, you know, particularly I think the third week break up for the Christmas holidays, the weather possibly could turn rather challenging. Now by the Christmas week, prediction and estimations wise is that the air won't be quite as cold, but even that, temperatures could be below average on certain days, and I think Christmas Day there's a higher chance of snow, but even our chances of seeing snow on Christmas Day is still actually quite low, 15 to 20%, as we'll start to see pressure rising, but also slightly less cold air, so we'll start to see, let's say, a slight northwesterly, but as a high pressure will be building across the Atlantic, that will influence, that'll kill off all of the low pressures, and then, and winds will generally be light as well throughout that time. And with the high pressure, it tends to settle the weather down, but probably quite a cloudy one throughout the last week of December. So, but certainly will be calmer, prediction-wise. But that's why December will be a colder than average month. Generally, it will be quite a sunny month. Most days we'll see a good about 4 to 6 hours of sunshine. But rainfall totals will be around average. A bit of a wet start, and then mostly a snowy end. So. Certainly very unsettled and also very windy as well. Then as we approach through January, it is fairly likely that we'll see a lower risk of snow days. So January probably would be fairly windy and quite wet, but the temperatures will be around average, maybe possibly a shade above. The winds will generally be, we've got like an active, we'll see generally winds to westerly to southwesterly. We've got like an active jet stream, which will be bringing in some, majority of the time, predominantly unsettled weather. So the New Year outlook actually will be much more, it will be quite settled. The pressure will still be relatively high as we approach into 2020, but I think the emphasis of the weather will be quite cloudy. The winds will be fairly light, occasionally breezy, but nothing too stormy. The temperatures could be into double figures, which we probably wouldn't see for about a month-wise. But I think overall it's going to be a very, very mixed outlook. It's not going to be a completely wet January. I mean, the pressures, will be a little bit on and off, and the jet stream won't be facing the UK, the British Isles all the time. There will be a few kinks, slightly upper ridges and then lower ridges. So it's a bit of a zigzaggy month. It's not going to be, consistently wet. It's not. I think particularly the first couple of weeks of January will be most likely to be milder, slightly cooler second half, but not exceptionally cold. Although I wouldn't rule out a few wintry days, but certainly I'll be predicting it's not going to be quite as widespread. So it's not a massive amount to describe the weather too much, but I think, let's say, throughout the first half of second week onwards, throughout the first half of January, let's say the 6th to the 10th, it's probably going to be the most unsettled part of the month. The winds will be fairly strong, the odd storm wouldn't be ruled out. The weather will be fairly mixed. There will be some wet days, maybe the odd very wet one, 10 to 15 millimeters on one particular day, could be more than that. There will be some dry intervals, there will be sunny spells. Like I said, the pressures, it will vary from day to day, British Isles. When we get changeable weather, one day could be wet, one day could be nice and sunny. I think particularly, it stays very unsettled at times into the second half. As I said, we're getting a bit of a cooler ridge, winds most likely to be northwesterly. It's more likely to be showers around this stage, but there could still be the odd weather fronts which could bring in a lot of rain around. I think northern areas, particularly Scotland, could see some spells of snow at times. I think we get a bit of a northwesterly, and it kind of stays that way. We're not getting a huge amount of southerly. We'll lose that throughout the second week of January, and we'll replace with northwesterly winds. And the pressure's fairly lower than average, I guess, throughout the whole month of January. But we get showers, they don't produce quite as much rainfall. And I think, like I said, there will be a few sunny days, pretty much right throughout the second half. The winds mostly will be at a northwesterly, so close to westerly. But I think the wetness of the weather will actually vary in location, so it's not going to always focus on one particular region. I think probably the last few days of January, the weather might eventually settle down to get pressure rising. The wind directions will be a little bit open to question. But basically, the jet stream will be close by to the British Isles, so we expect January to be another pretty unsettled month, nowhere near going to be as cold, and I think the mildest of the weather will probably get a bit of a southwesterly southerly, so we'll see the warmest of the temperatures into double figures. We don't know how warm it will be, nothing record breaking. I think the second half probably will be predominantly cooler, but we keep the unsettled theme coming on. Normally pressure is higher towards near the Mediterranean, and we get lower pressure towards the northern British Isles. So, like I said, January, a fairly mixed month, close to average, but most days could be at least some rain around. Then we approach February. Now, just before I go on with the prediction-wise, February 2019, I think some of you might know, it was a record breaker. Well, it wasn't the warmest February on record, I believe, but it was probably the warmest day on record. We've had 21 degrees Celsius reached in, I think it was Kew Gardens near London, but even parts of the East Midlands, probably northern England, temperatures well into the mid-teens, which was well and truly like spring with the sunny clear skies. It was like we were in a completely different country, I'd say. But I think it's extremely unlikely February will be a warm month. In fact, I think data-wise, February could actually be a possibly colder than average month. And yes, a few heavy snow days wouldn't be ruled out once again. So a little bit like we're in 2017/2018. But actually February will probably be the driest month out of the three. There's not as much, particularly February is normally the driest month because there's not as much pressure contrast, you know, with high pressure on, let's say, south, low pressure north, and also different air gradients, you know, that sometimes adds in the juice and the ingredients to make some pretty heavy wind and rainstorms, whatever. February is likely to be probably the most settled of the month-ish, but it's not going to be that settled. I think the beginning of February actually will probably be at its mildest, but the pressure will be rising for most of February, but I think also it's going to be quite a dull month, which isn't too surprising. February is usually the dullest month. We keep a lot of clouds, and it's a much quieter start to the month for February. The winds will be probably to a southwesterly, but we've got like pressure rising, so there will be a few. The low pressure systems will be close by at times, but not directly across the British Isles. The high pressure will at times keep the weather fronts out of bay across the Atlantic, so I think it's relatively quiet. The winds will particularly be light as well, so a calm and quiet start to February, I believe. But I think especially we keep the high pressure towards mid-February, but we get a change in the jet stream adding in with the wind direction, so we get like a bit of a northwesterly. Not a lot of rain though, in fact potentially a dry week for some for the second week of February. Temperatures, obviously we could see like a northwesterly, and then at times we could see a northerly flow, and there are some predictions, so when we get this, temperatures could be close to freezing when we get like a change in direction from northwesterly to northerly, and then we could even see like an easterly flow, as those pressure, you know, the way the low pressure and high pressure circulating the wind directions, it could just turn very cold all of a sudden. So I think especially well into mid-February it could possibly turn very cold, and then we also, pressure will start to drop on some areas, you know, because pressure rises in some and then pressure falls on some areas. Depending where the low pressure may be centred, we could see a spell after a relatively quiet start to the month. We could see like a weather front bringing in some heavy spells of snow, and when we get that easterly, we call beast from the east. That's eastern areas of the area this time, not from the north in December. We'll see the heaviest of the snowfalls. So I think those slightly western areas will probably dodge the worst of it, but eastern areas, particularly Lincolnshire, for example, if that does occur, could be in trouble. So I think mid-February, after a quiet start, it could bring in a wintry breakdown. It's not likely to be as long-lasting as it is. Normally when we get an easterly wind direction, it takes a week or two for that to shift away. But there are predictions that it's not going to be as long lasting. It will last for, let's say, 3 to 5 days at its max, whilst the other time we had it a couple of years ago, I think it was well over a week to almost 2 weeks in terms of temperature. The snow days will probably only get 1 or 2 compared to about 4 or 5 in total. I think by the latter part of February, the weather not quite an easterly, but we get like a bit of a... The pressure will stay a little bit further south of the UK, and we'll get in some changeable weather, so it will be a bit more wetter throughout the last 10 days of February, but we don't quite get the direct wintry feel. Maybe some snow showers at its worst. Pressure will be a bit lower around that time, and the winds could pick up a little bit, but because normally February doesn't bring in as much strong winds because the temperature contrast isn't so great, so the latter parts of winter there will be fewer storms or probably not any big ones. But the weather, like I said, conditions wise, it is looking a little bit unsettled right through to the end of the winter season. So let's just recap. February, a colder than average, a duller than average, slightly drier than average though. That's one positive side, but I think the wettest of the weather will be at the end of the month. Particularly we'll have a very, very dry start. So just to finish off, what will the outlook of the winter 2019/2020 be like in the UK? I will be honest, prediction wise, slightly colder than average, or probably colder than average, so yeah. Rainfall totals pretty much around, maybe just slightly wetter than average. There will be some dry days, and sunshine totals pretty much around average though this year. I mean, February might be the dullest, but I think December and January around maybe just slightly sunnier than average. So I think overall it's a fairly sort of even winter, but the beast from the east will be a little bit more likely next winter because we barely had any last year. It's been a mostly snow-free month for some places, some snow-free season for some places, but it could be different this year. So that's what the outlook will bring. Thanks very much for watching, and of course I will be updating you on these very, very soon as we get later on into the year. It could be completely different to what I may say, let's say in a few months' time. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you check out my college vlogs I've been doing a couple of weeks ago, and the next video will be the usual UK 7-day weather forecast. So, other than that, like, comment, subscribe. The storm is now out.